Welcome to episode 4 of the Pro PA podcast. I'm your host, Prof G, and today's episode is all about the PANCE Blueprint update that takes effect starting January 2025. If you're graduating in 2025 or planning for future retakes, this episode is for you. I'll break down the changes in the category percentages, new topics, and reorganized content, and provide practical tips to help you study smarter. Let's dive in. So, for those of you that do or don't know about this, the NCCPA routinely updates the PANCE blueprint to align with real world PA practice. And this is based on practice analysis surveys that are done. The PANCE is the exam that PAs take at the end of their training for the first time to become certified, and it is put out by the NCCPA. This new blueprint reflects the updates that have come into play and goes into effect for all exams starting on January 2025. Now, the last time we had an update was in 2019. So we are definitely looking at this update to see what changes have been made and how we need to change our approach to studying. So, what is changing? Number one, the content categories have been adjusted. Now, some of the areas were adjusted to better reflect some of the evolving clinical practice, and here's kind of the breakdown. So, we had three categories that had increased percentages associated with them, and the three categories are infectious disease, psych/behavioral health, and professional practice. Now, infectious disease used to be at a 5%, and now it has increased by 1% up to 6%. Behavioral health has also increased by 1%. It is now 7%. And professional practice, which wasn't really even its own category before this, has now been clearly listed as its own category, and it is at 6%. So this is no joke. It's just as much as infectious disease, it's more than derm. So we do need to pay a little closer attention to professional practice. Now, another adjustment that has been made has been the decreased categories. There are several categories that have seen a reduction in their percentile. So, one of the, if not the most weighted category, has always been the cardiovascular system, and this has been reduced. This in this update has been reduced from 13 to 12. So we see a 1% decrease, still by far the most highly weighted category. Next up, dermatology. We've seen a decrease in dermatology from 5% to now 4%. Endocrinology has also been reduced from 7% to 6%. The GI system has been reduced from 10% to 9%. And the pulmonary system has been reduced from 10% to now 9%. There are still several unchanged categories, and those are hematology, neurology, renal system, and musculoskeletal system. Those still have the same weighted percentages as we saw before. So, what else? There's content adjustments and some reorganization of topics. So we have some new topics that have appeared on this PANCE Blueprint update. Some of the notable ones would be like stress cardiomyopathy is now under cardiovascular. We see atrial tachycardia now. We might see some myocarditis. There's some new categories that are coming up. We also see some updated terminology. So, primary hypertension is now the category instead of essential hypertension. We also saw the removal of some duplicated items such as eczema and atopic dermatitis, and now just one of the two. We also see some reorganization of the topics. For instance, asthma has now been grouped under the obstructive disorders, whereas before it was kind of out on its own. We also see things like refeeding syndrome that has been moved into the GI system, and tardive dyskinesia, which has moved into neurology. Another section that has seen a pretty big expansion is the EENT section. Now there's 2 pages, and so it's not really a whole lot more that you need to know. It's just been broken down and expanded a bit to clearly outline the topics that they're expecting us to know. and they're more detailed subsections, and it spans a little bit of additional content for the EENT category. So now that we know the changes that have taken place, and especially for those that are taking their exam in January of 2025 or beyond, now we need to ask ourselves, how do we use the new blueprint for studying? So these changes, it might seem overwhelming, especially if you've been prepping for your PANCE exam for the past 2.5 years with the old blueprint. There are some actionable tips that I can give you to help you prepare. So number one, download the updated blueprint. Familiarize yourself with the changes. I would go ahead and take a highlighter and highlight the areas with percentage increases, things like infectious disease and psychiatry. Also, you need to prioritize your weak areas. So, using the new percentages to help guide your focus, you're going to pick high yield topics like cardiovascular, and they're going to remain essential. Don't have to change much there. But you also have to remember not to underestimate things like professional practice and other categories that have increased. Number three, leverage the updated study resources. So, there are plenty of platforms out there that are designed for you as a PA student to succeed. These include Hippo PA, Roche Review, Blueprint, UWorld. There's tons of them out there. Find the one that works with you. It's also Smarty Pants. I'm not being sponsored by any of these, but I know that a lot of our students use them. And my advice to you is to pick the platform that you connect with the most, that helps you the most, and stick with it. Don't get overwhelmed with tons and tons of different resources because there are so many out there. Sometimes more is not better. Use these updated platforms to align with the new blueprint and focus on Q banks that have also reflected those 2025 updates for practice questions. So, who does this affect? Well, if you're testing in 2024, no worries, these changes will not apply to you. If you are testing in 2025 or beyond, you need to start studying with the updated blueprint in mind. And if you're taking the exam in 2025, make sure you're aware of the new category weights and the new topics, because chances are, since this blueprint just came out a few months ago, your professors who taught you in didactic year probably didn't know that this change was forthcoming. And so you do need to take a look at those extra categories and weight percentages and use that in your studying. So while some of these categories have decreased slightly, the overall shift reflects real world PA practice. And categories like, again, infectious disease, psych, and professional practice are becoming increasingly important. So now's the time to adjust your study strategy and focus on the areas that count. So, thank you all so much for joining me in today's episode on the PANCE Blueprint update in 2025. If you are testing in 2025, download the updated blueprint, adjust your study plan, and tackle the changes with confidence. You're going to do great. Just have to prepare, and you will be a pro PA. For more PANCE prep tips, clinical pearls, high yield content, please check out my YouTube channel, Prof G PAC, and go ahead and hit the follow button on this podcast so that you never miss an episode. And as always, this is the Pro PA podcast, where future pros in medicine are made. I will catch you in the next episode. Best of luck studying for your PANCE.